Question 1. The control framework reveals that automated provisioning of new virtual machines within the VMware cloud environment must adhere to strict security hardening standards and data residency regulations. A proposed automation workflow aims to significantly reduce VM deployment time, which approach best balances the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of regulatory compliance. Option A. Prioritize the speed of the automation workflow, assuming that the default VMware cloud configurations meet all necessary security and data residency requirements. Option B. Implement the automation workflow for rapid deployment and rely on a separate, manual security audit team to review and remediate any compliance issues post-deployment. Option C. Design the automation workflow to dynamically apply pre-approved security hardening templates and data residency checks as part of the provisioning process, with automated alerts for any deviations. Option D. Develop a custom script that bypasses certain security checks during initial deployment to accelerate the process, with a plan to address them in a subsequent, separate automation run. The correct answer is C. Design the automation workflow to dynamically apply pre-approved security hardening templates and data residency checks as part of the provisioning process, with automated alerts for any deviations. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment and agility with robust security and compliance requirements. The challenge lies in ensuring that automated processes, while efficient, do not inadvertently bypass or weaken critical control points that are essential for maintaining a secure and compliant environment. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to identify and implement controls that are both effective and seamlessly integrated into automated workflows, avoiding manual workarounds that introduce risk. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integration of security and compliance directly into the automation design and lifecycle. This proactive strategy ensures that controls are not an afterthought but are inherent to the automated processes. This aligns with the principles of security by design and compliance by design, which are fundamental to modern cloud governance. Specifically, it adheres to the principles of least privilege, segregation of duties, and continuous monitoring, all of which are critical for maintaining a secure and auditable cloud environment, as mandated by regulatory frameworks governing cloud operations. An incorrect approach that relies solely on manual review after deployment fails to address the root cause of potential noncompliance. This introduces significant risk, as vulnerabilities or policy violations could exist in production for an extended period before detection, leading to potential data breaches or regulatory penalties. This approach is ethically and regulatorily unsound, as it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to implement adequate preventative controls. Another incorrect approach that focuses only on the speed of deployment without considering the impact on existing security policies is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a disregard for established governance and risk management principles. It can lead to the introduction of unauthorized configurations or services, creating security gaps and making the environment difficult to audit and manage, thereby violating compliance obligations. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a thorough understanding of the organization's security policies, compliance obligations, and the specific capabilities of the VMware cloud management and automation platform. It requires a risk-based approach, where potential impacts of automation are assessed against established controls. Professionals should engage with security and compliance teams early in the design phase, leverage automation tools to enforce policies, and implement continuous monitoring and auditing mechanisms to ensure ongoing adherence to regulatory requirements. Question 2. To address the challenge of integrating a critical legacy application into the VMware cloud environment to meet urgent business demands, which approach best aligns with advanced design principles for VMware cloud management and automation, considering stakeholder perspectives and long-term operational efficiency? Option A. Prioritize the implementation of a specific, well-known third-party integration tool that has been successful in other environments, assuming it will be a suitable fit for this legacy application without extensive validation or stakeholder input. Option B. Immediately deploy the application to the VMware cloud using the quickest available integration method to satisfy the business unit's urgent request, deferring any detailed assessment or stakeholder consultation until after the initial deployment. Option C. Focus solely on the technical aspects of migrating the application's data and core functionality, bypassing any discussions about management, automation, or operational oversight to expedite the process. Option D. Conduct a thorough assessment of the application's technical requirements, dependencies, and performance metrics. Engage all relevant stakeholders, application owners, operations, security, finance, to understand their priorities and constraints, and then design a solution that leverages VMware cloud management and automation capabilities for seamless integration, scalability, and ongoing governance. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough assessment of the application's technical requirements, dependencies, and performance metrics. Engage all relevant stakeholders, application owners, operations, security, finance, to understand their priorities and constraints, and then design a solution that leverages VMware cloud management and automation capabilities for seamless integration, scalability, and ongoing governance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate operational needs of a business unit with the long-term strategic goals of cloud adoption and management, all while adhering to specific VMware cloud management and automation design principles. The pressure to deliver a quick solution for a critical application can lead to shortcuts that compromise scalability, security, and cost efficiency, which are core tenets of advanced design. Stakeholder alignment is crucial. Different departments will have varying priorities and risk tolerances, necessitating a consensus-driven approach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic, design-led methodology aligned with the principles of VMware cloud management and automation. It involves a thorough assessment of the application's requirements, existing infrastructure, and future scalability needs. By engaging all relevant stakeholders early and iteratively, it ensures that the proposed solution meets not only the immediate functional requirements, but also the broader organizational objectives for cloud governance, cost optimization, and operational efficiency. This proactive, collaborative, and principle-driven design process minimizes technical debt and reduces the risk of costly rework or operational failures, thereby upholding the integrity of the management and automation framework. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that focuses solely on the immediate technical requirements of the application without considering broader management and automation strategies would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a solution that is difficult to manage, scale, or integrate into the overall cloud environment, potentially violating principles of unified management and automation. It might also overlook critical security or compliance requirements, leading to regulatory or ethical breaches if sensitive data is involved. An approach that bypasses stakeholder consultation to expedite deployment, even with good intentions, is professionally unsound. This can result in a solution that does not meet the diverse needs of the organization, leading to user dissatisfaction, operational inefficiencies, and potential conflicts with other business units. Ethically, it fails to uphold principles of transparency and collaboration. An approach that prioritizes a specific technology or vendor solution without a thorough evaluation of its suitability against the application's requirements and the organization's strategic goals is also professionally flawed. This can lead to vendor lock-in, suboptimal performance, and increased costs, undermining the principles of efficient resource utilization and strategic technology adoption. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, phased approach to advanced design. This begins with a comprehensive discovery and assessment phase, followed by a design and validation phase, and concludes with implementation and ongoing optimization. Key to this process is continuous stakeholder engagement, risk assessment, and adherence to established design principles and best practices. When faced with competing priorities, professionals must facilitate open communication, clearly articulate the trade-offs of different approaches, and guide stakeholders towards a solution that balances immediate needs with long-term strategic objectives and regulatory compliance. The decision-making process should be data-driven, principle-based, and focused on delivering sustainable value. Question 3. The evaluation methodology shows a need to select a VMware cloud management and automation solution, considering the advanced design principles and the need for a robust, justifiable decision. Which approach best aligns with professional best practices for evaluating such a solution? Option A. Exclusive use of subjective user feedback and anecdotal evidence gathered from early adopters to gauge the solution's overall effectiveness and user satisfaction. Option B. Prioritization of the solution with the lowest upfront licensing and implementation costs, assuming operational efficiencies will naturally follow. Option C. A hybrid framework combining rigorous technical validation against defined performance benchmarks with a comprehensive risk-based assessment of operational, security, and compliance factors. Option D. Sole reliance on vendor-provided performance benchmarks and case studies to demonstrate the solution's capabilities and suitability for the intended environment. The correct answer is C. A hybrid framework combining rigorous technical validation against defined performance benchmarks with a comprehensive risk-based assessment of operational, security, and compliance factors. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in selecting the most appropriate decision-making framework for evaluating VMware cloud management and automation solutions, particularly when adhering to the specific regulatory framework of 3V0-32. 21. The core difficulty lies in balancing the technical requirements of advanced design with the need for a structured, justifiable, and compliant evaluation process. The chosen framework must ensure that the selected solution not only meets technical specifications, but also aligns with any implicit or explicit guidelines within the exam's scope, promoting transparency and repeatability. Correct approach, focusing on a hybrid framework that integrates technical validation with a risk-based assessment, represents best professional practice. This is because it directly addresses the multifaceted nature of advanced cloud management design. Technical validation ensures the solution's functional and performance capabilities are met, while a risk-based assessment, grounded in principles of due diligence and prudent management, identifies potential operational, security, and compliance issues. This dual focus is crucial for making informed decisions that minimize future disruptions and ensure alignment with organizational objectives, which is a cornerstone of professional responsibility in IT architecture and management. An approach that solely relies on vendor-provided benchmarks is professionally unacceptable due to regulatory and ethical failures. It demonstrates a lack of independent verification and due diligence, potentially leading to the selection of a solution that is over-optimized for vendor-specific scenarios and may not perform adequately in the target environment. This failure to conduct thorough, independent evaluation can be seen as a breach of professional duty to act in the best interest of the organization. An approach that prioritizes only the lowest initial cost, without considering long-term operational expenses, performance, or security implications, is also professionally unacceptable. This is a failure of responsible financial stewardship and risk management. It can lead to significant hidden costs and operational inefficiencies down the line, potentially violating implicit organizational mandates for cost-effectiveness and sustainability. Ethically, it prioritizes short-term gains over long-term viability and organizational health. An approach that exclusively uses subjective user feedback without objective technical validation is professionally unsound. While user experience is important, relying solely on subjective input neglects critical performance, scalability, and security aspects that are paramount in advanced cloud management. This can lead to a solution that is user-friendly but ultimately incapable of meeting the demanding requirements of enterprise-grade cloud automation, representing a failure in technical due diligence and potentially exposing the organization to operational risks. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve establishing clear evaluation criteria upfront, aligned with organizational goals and any relevant compliance mandates. This includes defining both technical and non-technical, e.g., cost, support, security requirements. A multifaceted evaluation methodology, incorporating objective testing, risk assessment, and stakeholder input, should then be applied. Professionals should always strive for a balanced perspective, ensuring that decisions are data-driven, justifiable, and demonstrably in the best interest of the organization, adhering to principles of integrity and competence. Question 4. System analysis indicates that a development team proposes to implement a new VMware cloud automation solution to accelerate the deployment of critical business applications. The proposed solution utilizes a third-party integration that has not been previously vetted by the organization's security or compliance departments. The team is eager to deploy rapidly to meet aggressive business deadlines. Which of the following approaches best aligns with advanced design principles for VMware cloud management and automation, ensuring both agility and adherence to governance? Option A. Proceed with the deployment of the automation solution immediately, as the business deadlines are paramount, and address any security or compliance concerns in a post-implementation review. Option B. Implement the automation solution after a comprehensive security and compliance review, engaging relevant stakeholders to ensure the solution meets all established policies and regulatory requirements before deployment. Option C. Defer the decision to the development team, allowing them to integrate the solution as they deem fit, with the understanding that they will document any security considerations they encounter. Option D. Deploy the automation solution without formal security or compliance review, relying solely on the vendor's assurances regarding its security posture and compliance certifications. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the deployment of the automation solution immediately, as the business deadlines are paramount, and address any security or compliance concerns in a post-implementation review. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative of maintaining robust security and compliance. The pressure to deliver new features quickly can lead to shortcuts or the adoption of less scrutinized solutions, potentially introducing vulnerabilities or violating established governance policies. This requires a careful judgment call, weighing the immediate business benefits against long-term risks and regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, risk-based evaluation of the proposed automation solution against existing security policies and compliance requirements. This aligns with best practices in cloud governance and automation design, emphasizing proactive risk mitigation. By engaging security and compliance teams early, the organization ensures that the automation solution is designed with security and compliance as foundational elements, rather than as afterthoughts. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of costly remediation efforts or regulatory penalties down the line. It also fosters a culture of shared responsibility for security and compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the automation solution without a formal security and compliance review, relying solely on the vendor's claims. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses established governance frameworks designed to protect sensitive data and ensure adherence to industry-specific regulations, e.g., data privacy laws, financial regulations. Such an approach creates a blind spot, potentially leading to the deployment of solutions that are non-compliant, insecure, and expose the organization to data breaches, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over thorough validation, assuming that any issues can be addressed post-implementation. This is also a failure of professional responsibility and regulatory compliance. It demonstrates a disregard for established change management processes and risk assessment protocols. The assumption that problems can be fixed later is often flawed. Security and compliance issues discovered after deployment can be far more complex and expensive to rectify, and may have already resulted in breaches or violations. This approach neglects the principle of security by design and compliance by design. A third incorrect approach is to defer the decision to the development team without providing them with clear security and compliance guidelines. While empowering teams is important, this abdication of oversight is problematic. It places an undue burden on the development team, who may not have the specialized knowledge or authority to make definitive compliance and security decisions. This can lead to inconsistent application of policies, unintentional noncompliance, and a lack of accountability. It fails to establish a clear governance structure for automation solutions. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such decisions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment and adherence to established governance. This involves 1. Understanding the business need and the proposed solution. 2. Identifying all relevant security policies, compliance regulations, and internal governance frameworks. 3. Conducting a thorough risk assessment of the proposed solution against these requirements. 4. Engaging relevant stakeholders, security, compliance, legal operations in the evaluation process. 5. Documenting the decision-making process, including the rationale for acceptance or rejection and any mitigation strategies. 6. Implementing a continuous monitoring and auditing process for deployed solutions. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with the organization's risk appetite and regulatory obligations. Question 5. Quality control measures reveal that the project team responsible for implementing the new VMware cloud management and automation solution is considering several automation tools. The team is under pressure to deliver quickly. One option is to select the tool with the lowest initial licensing cost. Another is to proceed with the tool most frequently recommended by the primary vendor. A third option is to choose the tool that the current infrastructure team has the most experience with, even if it's not specifically designed for cloud automation. The project manager is advocating for a structured evaluation process that includes a proof of concept POC and a thorough assessment against defined compliance and operational criteria. Which approach best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory adherence for this scenario? Option A. Select the tool that the current infrastructure team has the most experience with, prioritizing rapid deployment over specific cloud automation capabilities. Option B. Choose the automation tool most frequently recommended by the primary vendor, assuming their expertise guarantees suitability. Option C. Proceed with a structured evaluation process that includes a proof of concept POC and a thorough assessment against defined compliance and operational criteria. Option D. Opt for the automation tool with the lowest initial licensing cost to meet immediate budget constraints. The correct answer is C. Proceed with a structured evaluation process that includes a proof of concept POC and a thorough assessment against defined compliance and operational criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to the implementation of a new VMware cloud management and automation solution, specifically concerning the decision-making framework for selecting appropriate automation tools. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for rapid deployment with the long-term implications of tool selection on operational efficiency, security, and compliance within the defined regulatory framework. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen tools align with the organization's strategic objectives and adhere to all applicable regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based decision-making process. This involves thoroughly evaluating potential tools against predefined criteria that encompass technical capabilities, security features, integration potential, vendor support, and importantly, compliance with the specific regulatory framework governing the organization's operations. By conducting a proof of concept POC and engaging stakeholders, the team ensures that the selected tools are not only technically sound, but also operationally viable and compliant, thereby mitigating risks and maximizing the return on investment. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology adoption and adherence to governance frameworks. Each incorrect approach carries specific regulatory or ethical failures. Opting for the tool with the lowest upfront cost without a comprehensive evaluation risks selecting a solution that may be non-compliant with regulatory requirements, leading to potential fines, data breaches, or operational disruptions. This failure to conduct due diligence is an ethical lapse and a violation of regulatory principles that mandate risk assessment and compliance. Relying solely on the recommendation of a single vendor, without independent verification or consideration of alternatives, introduces bias and overlooks potential shortcomings or security vulnerabilities that could lead to regulatory noncompliance. This is an ethical failure in objectivity and a regulatory failure in risk management. Adopting the tool most familiar to the existing IT team, without assessing its suitability for the new cloud environment and its specific regulatory context, can lead to inefficient operations and security gaps. This is a professional failure to adapt to new requirements and a potential regulatory failure if the chosen tool does not meet compliance standards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining project requirements and constraints, including all relevant regulatory mandates. This should be followed by identifying and evaluating potential solutions against these requirements, using a scoring mechanism that weighs technical merit, cost, security, and compliance. A critical step is conducting pilot programs or POCs to validate the chosen solutions in a controlled environment. Finally, a formal review and approval process involving all relevant stakeholders, including compliance and security teams, should be implemented before final adoption. Question 6. Consider a scenario where a cloud operations team needs to implement a new automated workflow to provision virtual machines with specific configurations. The team has developed a script that appears to meet the functional requirements, but it has not undergone formal security review or performance testing. The business unit is pushing for immediate deployment to meet a critical project deadline. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Deploy the script immediately to meet the business deadline, with a plan to address any issues that arise post-deployment. Option B. Implement the script after a thorough security review, performance testing, and integration into the existing change management process, even if it means a slight delay to the deadline. Option C. Delegate the responsibility of testing and review to the business unit requesting the automation, as they are most familiar with the immediate need. Option D. Deploy the script without formal review, but document its functionality and potential risks for future reference. The correct answer is A. Deploy the script immediately to meet the business deadline, with a plan to address any issues that arise post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid innovation and the need for robust, compliant, and secure cloud management and automation solutions. The pressure to deliver new features quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term stability, security, and adherence to established best practices, which are implicitly governed by the principles of responsible technology deployment and operational excellence expected within the VMware ecosystem. Careful judgment is required to balance agility with risk mitigation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, iterative, and risk-aware methodology for introducing new automation capabilities. This aligns with the principles of mature IT service management and cloud governance, ensuring that changes are validated, documented, and aligned with organizational policies and security standards before widespread adoption. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of introducing vulnerabilities or operational disruptions, thereby safeguarding the integrity and availability of the managed cloud environment. It reflects a commitment to delivering reliable and secure automation, which is a cornerstone of effective cloud management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate feature deployment without adequate testing or validation fails to uphold professional responsibility. This can lead to the introduction of bugs, security flaws, or performance degradation, directly impacting the operational stability and security posture of the cloud environment. Such an approach risks violating implicit organizational policies regarding change management and risk assessment, potentially leading to service outages, data breaches, or non-compliance with internal security mandates. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established approval workflows for automation scripts, even if seemingly efficient, undermines the principle of accountability and governance. This creates a shadow IT environment for automation, making it difficult to track, audit, and manage changes effectively. It increases the risk of unauthorized modifications, inconsistent deployments, and a lack of oversight, which are all detrimental to a secure and well-managed cloud infrastructure. This can also lead to conflicts with existing automation or manual processes, causing unexpected behavior and operational chaos. A third incorrect approach that relies on undocumented or ad hoc automation solutions, while appearing to solve an immediate problem, creates significant technical debt and operational risk. Without proper documentation, these solutions are difficult to maintain, troubleshoot, or integrate with future systems. This lack of transparency and standardization makes the environment brittle and prone to failures that are hard to diagnose and resolve, ultimately hindering efficient cloud management and automation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a framework that emphasizes 1. Understanding the business need and the proposed automation solution's impact. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment, including security, operational, and compliance considerations. 3. Designing and developing the automation with adherence to established coding standards, security best practices, and documentation requirements. 4. Implementing a phased rollout strategy with comprehensive testing at each stage. 5. Establishing clear approval gates and change management processes. 6. Ensuring ongoing monitoring, logging, and a plan for maintenance and updates. This systematic approach ensures that innovation is balanced with stability, security, and governance. Question 7. The investigation demonstrates that a critical business application is experiencing delays in deployment due to manual security and compliance validation steps within the automated provisioning workflow. The operations team is proposing to streamline the process by temporarily disabling certain automated compliance checks during the initial deployment phase to accelerate delivery, with the intention of re-enabling them post-deployment. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to advanced design principles for VMware cloud management and automation? Option A. Create a separate manual process for compliance validation that runs in parallel with the automated provisioning, adding significant overhead. Option B. Temporarily disable automated compliance checks during the initial deployment phase to expedite the process, with a plan to re-enable them after the application is live. Option C. Rely solely on manual security and compliance reviews conducted by a separate team after the automated provisioning is complete. Option D. Implement automated policy as code that enforces security and compliance checks as an integral part of the provisioning pipeline, failing the deployment if any checks are not met. The correct answer is D. Implement automated policy as code that enforces security and compliance checks as an integral part of the provisioning pipeline, failing the deployment if any checks are not met. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a common challenge in advanced VMware cloud management and automation environments, balancing the need for rapid resource provisioning with robust security and compliance controls. The scenario is professionally challenging because the pressure to deliver services quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term security posture and regulatory adherence. Careful judgment is required to ensure that automation, while efficient, does not bypass essential governance mechanisms. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it integrates security and compliance directly into the automation workflow, aligning with the principles of DevSecOps and the shift-left security model. This proactive integration ensures that security and compliance are not afterthoughts, but are inherent to the design and operation of the cloud management platform. This aligns with the overarching goal of maintaining a secure and compliant cloud environment, which is a fundamental responsibility in managing automated cloud resources. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over security would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. By bypassing security reviews or compliance checks, an organization risks data breaches, non-compliance with industry regulations, e.g., data privacy laws, financial regulations, and reputational damage. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the responsibility to protect sensitive data and maintain system integrity. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on manual oversight without leveraging automation for compliance checks, is inefficient and prone to human error, increasing the likelihood of non-compliance and security vulnerabilities. This fails to leverage the capabilities of advanced cloud management tools to enforce policies consistently. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a risk-based approach. This involves identifying potential security and compliance risks associated with automated provisioning, evaluating the impact of these risks, and then designing automation workflows that mitigate these risks effectively. The framework should also include continuous monitoring and auditing capabilities to ensure ongoing adherence to policies and regulations. Collaboration between development, operations, and security teams is crucial to embed these considerations from the outset. Question 8. To address the challenge of ensuring continuous compliance and security posture within a VMware Cloud Foundation environment undergoing rapid infrastructure updates, which automation design principle should be prioritized to embed regulatory adherence directly into the operational workflows? Option A. Design automation to bypass specific compliance checks during initial deployment phases to accelerate time to market, with a plan to address them in subsequent maintenance windows. Option B. Implement a policy-driven automation framework where security and compliance rules are defined as code and enforced by automated workflows, triggering remediation actions for any deviations. Option C. Utilize a reactive automation approach that only initiates security and compliance remediation when a security incident or audit failure is explicitly reported. Option D. Rely on post-deployment manual audits and ad hoc security scans to identify and rectify compliance issues, prioritizing deployment speed over immediate enforcement. The correct answer is B. Implement a policy-driven automation framework where security and compliance rules are defined as code and enforced by automated workflows, triggering remediation actions for any deviations. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment and agility with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The professional challenge lies in designing an automation framework that can adapt to evolving business requirements while adhering to strict regulatory mandates, specifically within the context of VMware Cloud Foundation, VCF, and its associated management and automation capabilities as defined by the 3V0-32. 21. Exam syllabus. This requires a deep understanding of how automation can be leveraged to enforce policies, audit configurations, and respond to security events without introducing new vulnerabilities or compliance gaps. Careful judgment is required to select automation strategies that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a policy-driven automation model. This model ensures that security and compliance controls are embedded directly into the automation workflows, rather than being an afterthought. By defining desired states and using automation to continuously monitor and remediate deviations, organizations can achieve a higher level of assurance that their VCF environment remains compliant with relevant regulations. This proactive and integrated approach minimizes the risk of human error, reduces the attack surface, and facilitates efficient auditing. It aligns with the principles of secure by design and compliance by design, which are critical in regulated environments. An incorrect approach that relies solely on manual intervention for security and compliance checks after deployment is professionally unacceptable. This introduces significant regulatory and ethical failures. It fails to meet the least privilege principle by potentially allowing misconfigurations to persist, increasing the risk of unauthorized access or data breaches. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence in protecting sensitive data and systems. From a regulatory standpoint, it can lead to noncompliance with data protection laws and industry-specific mandates, resulting in severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach that bypasses automated compliance checks to speed up deployment is also professionally unacceptable. This directly violates the principle of security and compliance as an enabler, not a blocker. It creates a false sense of agility by ignoring fundamental security and compliance requirements. This approach carries a high risk of introducing vulnerabilities that could be exploited, leading to data loss, service disruption, and significant financial and legal repercussions. It also undermines the integrity of the automation framework, making it unreliable for enforcing organizational policies. A professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a risk-based assessment. First, identify all applicable regulatory and compliance requirements. Second, evaluate how each proposed automation strategy impacts the ability to meet these requirements. Third, prioritize solutions that embed compliance and security into the automation lifecycle. Fourth, conduct thorough testing and validation of automated workflows to ensure they function as intended and do not introduce new risks. Finally, establish a continuous monitoring and auditing process to maintain compliance over time. This systematic approach ensures that automation serves to enhance, rather than compromise, security and compliance posture. Question 9. Benchmark analysis indicates that a new automated workflow is proposed to streamline the provisioning of virtual machines within a VMware cloud environment. This workflow will leverage custom scripts and integrate with existing identity management systems. The primary goal is to reduce the time to deploy new development environments from several hours to under 15 minutes. The engineering team is eager to implement this change rapidly to accelerate development cycles. What is the most comprehensive and professionally responsible approach to assessing the impact of this proposed automation? Option A. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates the technical feasibility, operational implications, security considerations, and compliance requirements of the proposed automation, including its integration with existing systems and potential downstream effects on other cloud services and data. Option B. Focus the impact assessment solely on the technical aspects of the automation, ensuring the scripts are functional and the provisioning time is reduced as specified, without extensive review of operational or security implications. Option C. Limit the impact assessment to only the direct functional impact of the automation on virtual machine provisioning, disregarding broader system integrations and potential indirect consequences. Option D. Prioritize the immediate deployment of the automation to achieve the stated time savings, deferring any formal impact assessment until after the workflow has been implemented and any issues are identified. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates the technical feasibility, operational implications, security considerations, and compliance requirements of the proposed automation, including its integration with existing systems and potential downstream effects on other cloud services and data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation, balancing the need for rapid innovation and deployment with the imperative to maintain compliance and security. The pressure to deliver new features quickly can lead to shortcuts or incomplete assessments, potentially exposing the organization to significant risks. The professional challenge lies in effectively integrating impact assessment into the development lifecycle without becoming a bottleneck, ensuring that all stakeholders understand the implications of proposed changes. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, multifaceted impact assessment that considers technical, operational, security, and compliance dimensions. This aligns with best practices in IT governance and risk management, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate due diligence and risk mitigation. By systematically evaluating the potential effects on existing systems, data integrity, user experience, and adherence to relevant regulations, such as those governing data privacy and cloud security standards, this approach ensures that risks are identified and addressed proactively. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining a secure and compliant cloud environment, preventing costly breaches or regulatory penalties. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on the immediate technical feasibility of a new automation workflow overlooks critical operational and security implications. This can lead to unforeseen disruptions, increased support overhead, and potential security vulnerabilities that are not accounted for in the initial design. Such an approach fails to meet the due diligence requirements inherent in responsible cloud management and could violate regulatory principles that demand a holistic view of system changes. Prioritizing speed of deployment over any form of impact assessment is a direct contravention of risk management principles. This can result in the introduction of untested or inadequately secured automation, leading to data corruption, service outages, or compliance violations. Regulatory bodies often expect organizations to demonstrate a structured approach to change management and risk assessment, which this approach completely disregards, limiting the impact assessment to only the direct functional impact of the automation, while ignoring its integration with broader cloud management platforms and potential downstream effects, creates blind spots. This can lead to unintended consequences, such as conflicts with existing policies, inefficient resource utilization, or the creation of new security attack vectors. This narrow focus fails to provide a complete picture of the change's impact, which is essential for informed decision-making and regulatory compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to impact assessment. This involves 1. Defining the scope of the assessment based on the nature and criticality of the proposed change. 2. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and their concerns. 3. Systematically evaluating potential impacts across technical, operational, security, and compliance domains. 4. Documenting findings and recommending mitigation strategies. 5. Integrating the assessment findings into the decision-making process for change approval and implementation. This process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and compliance is maintained, fostering a culture of responsible innovation. Question 10. Examination of the data shows a proposal to implement a new automated workflow for provisioning virtual machines and deploying applications across a hybrid cloud environment. This automation is expected to significantly reduce deployment times and operational overhead. However, the proposal lacks a detailed analysis of how this new workflow might interact with existing security policies, impact the performance of critical business applications, or affect the workload of the existing operations team. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure responsible and compliant implementation? Option A. Immediately halt the project and revert to manual provisioning processes to avoid any potential risks, as the current data is insufficient to proceed. Option B. Proceed with the implementation as planned, focusing on the immediate benefits of reduced deployment times and operational overhead, and address any issues that arise post-deployment. Option C. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates potential technical, operational, security, and business implications, involving relevant stakeholders and documenting all findings and proposed mitigation strategies before proceeding. Option D. Delegate the responsibility for assessing potential impacts to the development team responsible for creating the automation, assuming they have considered all necessary factors during their design. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the implementation as planned, focusing on the immediate benefits of reduced deployment times and operational overhead, and address any issues that arise post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative to understand and mitigate potential impacts on existing systems and business operations. The professional challenge lies in the inherent tension between agility and stability. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to prevent unintended consequences, such as service disruptions, performance degradation, or security vulnerabilities, which can lead to significant financial losses, reputational damage, and non-compliance with regulatory requirements. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive evaluation of the proposed automation solution's potential effects across all relevant dimensions. This includes technical, operational, security, and business impacts. By engaging stakeholders, documenting findings, and developing mitigation strategies, professionals ensure that the automation aligns with organizational goals and risk tolerance. This proactive stance is not merely a best practice. It is often a requirement under various regulatory frameworks that mandate due diligence and risk management in IT system changes. Adhering to these principles fosters trust, ensures business continuity, and supports sustainable growth. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately performs an impact assessment is professionally unacceptable and carries significant regulatory and ethical risks. Failing to identify potential conflicts with existing security policies could lead to breaches, violating data protection regulations and ethical obligations to safeguard sensitive information. Ignoring potential performance bottlenecks or resource contention issues could result in service degradation, impacting customer satisfaction and potentially violating service-level agreements, SLAs, which are often implicitly or explicitly governed by contractual and regulatory obligations. Overlooking the need for adequate training and change management for operational teams can lead to misconfigurations and operational errors, increasing the risk of system failures and non-compliance with operational integrity mandates. The professional decision-making process for such situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This begins with clearly defining the scope of the proposed change. Next, potential impacts are identified through brainstorming, expert consultation, and analysis of historical data. Each identified impact is then assessed for its likelihood and severity. Based on this assessment, mitigation strategies are developed, and a decision is made on whether to proceed, modify, or defer the change. Continuous monitoring and review are essential throughout the implementation and operational phases to ensure that the initial assessment remains valid and that any emergent risks are addressed promptly. This iterative process ensures that decisions are informed, responsible, and aligned with both business objectives and regulatory compliance. Question 11. Performance analysis shows a significant and sudden increase in latency for a critical customer-facing application hosted on VMware Cloud. The operations team suspects a resource contention issue within the underlying infrastructure. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure a controlled and effective resolution while adhering to best practices for cloud management and automation? Option A. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to identify all affected services, applications, and dependencies, and to evaluate potential remediation strategies before implementing any changes. Option B. Initiate an immediate rollback of the most recent infrastructure change, assuming it is the root cause, to restore performance. Option C. Escalate the issue to the vendor support team without performing any initial diagnosis or impact assessment. Option D. Temporarily over-provision resources to the affected application to alleviate the latency and investigate the root cause later. The correct answer is B. Initiate an immediate rollback of the most recent infrastructure change, assuming it is the root cause, to restore performance. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management where performance degradation necessitates a rapid response, but the underlying cause is not immediately obvious. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of resolving performance issues with the need for a structured, compliant, and effective impact assessment to avoid unintended consequences or further disruptions. Adhering to the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specified for the 3V0-32 21 exam is paramount, ensuring that any remediation actions are not only technically sound, but also align with established best practices for cloud management and automation. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented impact assessment that prioritizes understanding the scope and potential consequences of any proposed changes. This aligns with best practices for change management and risk mitigation, which are implicitly or explicitly covered within the VMware Cloud Management and Automation Framework. By thoroughly analyzing the potential impact on various services, applications, and user groups, professionals can make informed decisions about the best course of action, minimizing the risk of exacerbating the performance issue or introducing new problems. This methodical approach ensures accountability and provides a clear audit trail, crucial for regulatory compliance and continuous improvement. Incorrect approaches fail to meet these professional and regulatory standards. One incorrect approach might involve immediate, unassessed remediation without understanding the root cause or potential ripple effects. This could lead to a whack-a-mole scenario where fixing one issue inadvertently creates another, violating principles of controlled change and potentially causing broader service outages. Another incorrect approach might be to ignore the performance issue, which is a clear failure to meet service-level objectives and could have significant business and reputational consequences, potentially contravening service delivery agreements or operational guidelines. A third incorrect approach could be to implement a solution based on assumptions rather than data, leading to wasted resources and a failure to address the actual problem, demonstrating a lack of due diligence and professional rigor. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the incident management lifecycle, including detection, diagnosis, resolution, and closure. When performance issues arise, the first step is to gather data and perform a rapid, albeit preliminary, impact assessment. This assessment should inform the decision on whether to proceed with immediate remediation, further investigation, or escalation. Documenting each step, the rationale behind decisions, and the observed outcomes is critical for learning, compliance, and future reference. Professionals must always consider the potential downstream effects of their actions within the complex ecosystem of cloud management and automation. Question 12. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to rapidly deploy a new automated workflow for provisioning virtual machines in a VMware cloud environment. The proposed workflow leverages several new integrations with third-party SaaS tools for configuration management. Which approach to assessing the impact of this new workflow best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory expectations for advanced cloud management and automation design? Option A. Perform a high-level impact assessment based solely on the functional requirements provided by the stakeholders, without deep technical validation or consultation with specialized teams. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes evaluating potential effects on security controls, data privacy, operational stability, compliance adherence, and integration points with existing systems and third-party services, involving relevant security, compliance, and operations teams throughout the design and pre-deployment phases. Option C. Focus the impact assessment exclusively on the performance metrics of the new workflow, assuming that if it performs well, other potential impacts are negligible. Option D. Implement the new automated workflow immediately to demonstrate agility and gather real-world feedback, with a plan to address any identified issues or impacts retrospectively as they arise. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes evaluating potential effects on security controls, data privacy, operational stability, compliance adherence, and integration points with existing systems and third-party services, involving relevant security, compliance, and operations teams throughout the design and pre-deployment phases. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation projects. balancing the desire for rapid innovation and feature deployment with the need for robust impact assessment to prevent unintended consequences. Stakeholders, driven by business needs, often prioritize speed, potentially overlooking the critical step of thoroughly evaluating how proposed changes might affect existing operations. Security posture or compliance requirements. Professional challenge lies in effectively communicating the value of impact assessment to stakeholders who may not fully grasp its technical or regulatory implications, and in integrating this assessment seamlessly into an agile development lifecycle without becoming a bottleneck. Careful judgment is required to identify the right level of detail for the assessment, ensuring it is comprehensive enough to be effective, but not so burdensome as to stifle progress. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, proactive impact assessment that is integrated into the design and deployment phases. This aligns with best practices in IT governance and risk management, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks governing data protection, operational resilience, and system integrity. By identifying potential impacts on security, compliance, performance, and existing workflows early in the design process, the team can proactively mitigate risks, adjust the design, or implement necessary controls. This approach fosters a culture of responsible innovation, ensuring that new functionalities are deployed safely and effectively, minimizing disruption and maintaining adherence to established standards. This proactive stance is crucial for demonstrating due diligence and accountability, which are often mandated or implied by regulatory requirements for system changes. Incorrect approaches analysis, an approach that defers impact assessment until after deployment is professionally unacceptable due to significant regulatory and ethical failures. It represents a failure to exercise due diligence and a disregard for operational risk management. This reactive stance can lead to security breaches, data loss, compliance violations, and service disruptions, all of which can have severe legal and financial repercussions. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of responsibility towards users, customers, and the organization's stakeholders by exposing them to unnecessary risks. Another incorrect approach, which is to conduct a superficial assessment without involving relevant subject matter experts, e.g., security, compliance, operations, also constitutes a regulatory and ethical failure. This superficiality means that critical risks are likely to be missed, leading to the same potential negative outcomes as a deferred assessment. It fails to meet the implicit or explicit requirements for thoroughness in risk evaluation and demonstrates a lack of commitment to robust governance. Professionally, it undermines the credibility of the design and implementation process. Finally, an approach that prioritizes stakeholder satisfaction over technical and regulatory due diligence by agreeing to implement changes without adequate assessment is a direct violation of professional responsibility. This can lead to the deployment of systems that are non-compliant, insecure, or unstable, exposing the organization to significant liability. It represents a failure to uphold professional standards of competence and integrity, prioritizing short-term appeasement over long-term organizational health and regulatory adherence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to impact assessment, prioritizing changes that have the highest potential for negative consequences. This involves establishing clear criteria for what constitutes a significant impact and ensuring that the assessment process is proportionate to the risk. The decision-making process should involve collaboration with all relevant stakeholders, including technical teams, security personnel, compliance officers, and business owners, to ensure a comprehensive understanding of potential impacts. Regular review and iteration of the assessment process are also crucial, especially in dynamic cloud environments. Professionals must advocate for the necessary resources and time to conduct thorough impact assessments, framing them not as impediments to progress, but as essential components of successful and responsible cloud adoption. Question 13. Analysis of the potential impact of implementing advanced VMware cloud management and automation capabilities, such as automated resource provisioning and self-healing workflows, on an organization's adherence to data residency and auditability requirements. Option A. Conduct a detailed impact assessment that maps proposed automation features against specific regulatory mandates for data location and audit logging, identifying any gaps and developing mitigation strategies before deployment. Option B. Implement the automation features with minimal configuration changes, relying on existing security policies to implicitly cover data residency and auditability, and addressing any issues that arise post-implementation. Option C. Assume that the underlying VMware cloud infrastructure's compliance certifications automatically satisfy all organizational data residency and auditability obligations, proceeding with implementation based on vendor assurances. Option D. Prioritize the technical efficiency gains of the automation features, deferring any detailed regulatory impact analysis until after the initial deployment and operationalization. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed impact assessment that maps proposed automation features against specific regulatory mandates for data location and audit logging, identifying any gaps and developing mitigation strategies before deployment. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management, balancing the benefits of adopting new, advanced automation features with the potential risks and compliance implications. The professional challenge lies in conducting a thorough impact assessment that goes beyond technical feasibility to encompass regulatory adherence and operational integrity. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the adoption of VMware cloud management and automation solutions aligns with the organization's risk appetite and regulatory obligations, particularly concerning data residency, security, and auditability. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the proposed automation changes against existing regulatory frameworks and internal policies. This includes identifying potential impacts on data privacy, security controls, operational continuity, and compliance reporting. By proactively identifying and mitigating risks, this approach ensures that the adoption of advanced automation features enhances efficiency without compromising regulatory standing or introducing unacceptable vulnerabilities. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing due diligence, risk management, and adherence to established governance principles, which are implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulatory bodies overseeing cloud services and data handling. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical benefits without considering regulatory implications represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. For instance, implementing automation that inadvertently bypasses existing data access controls or data residency requirements would violate data protection regulations. Another failure would be to overlook the audit trail implications of automated processes, potentially hindering compliance audits and investigations. A third incorrect approach might involve assuming that cloud provider compliance certifications automatically cover all organizational use cases, neglecting the shared responsibility model and the need for specific assessments of how the organization utilizes the cloud services. These failures stem from a lack of understanding of the regulatory landscape and a disregard for the organization's compliance obligations, leading to potential legal penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This framework should mandate the involvement of relevant stakeholders, including legal, compliance, security, and operations teams from the outset. It should require a clear definition of the scope of the impact assessment, the identification of applicable regulations, and the documentation of potential risks and mitigation strategies. Professionals should be trained to critically evaluate the claims made by technology vendors and to conduct independent verification of compliance-related aspects. Prioritizing a proactive, risk-aware approach that integrates regulatory considerations into the design and implementation phases of cloud management solutions is paramount. Question 14. The performance metrics show a consistent upward trend in resource utilization for a critical application, suggesting potential performance degradation if not addressed. An automated scaling policy is configured to respond to these metrics by provisioning additional resources. What is the most prudent next step to ensure compliance and operational integrity? Option A. Proceed with the automated scaling to proactively prevent performance issues, assuming the policy is correctly configured. Option B. Initiate an immediate impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of automated scaling on security, compliance, and cost, alongside performance. Option C. Manually review the performance metrics and adjust the scaling policy thresholds without further analysis. Option D. Temporarily disable the automated scaling policy and investigate the root cause of the utilization trend manually. The correct answer is B. Initiate an immediate impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of automated scaling on security, compliance, and cost, alongside performance. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management, balancing the need for rapid deployment and resource scaling with the imperative to understand and mitigate potential impacts on existing services and compliance postures. The professional challenge lies in the inherent tension between agility and stability, especially when dealing with advanced automation and management tools that can have far-reaching consequences. Careful judgment is required to ensure that automated actions, even those intended to improve performance, do not inadvertently violate regulatory requirements or compromise the integrity of critical business operations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive impact assessment before implementing changes. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT governance and risk management, which are implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulatory frameworks governing data handling, service availability, and security. By thoroughly evaluating the potential effects on performance, security, compliance, and cost, the organization can make informed decisions, proactively identify and address risks, and ensure that any changes are aligned with business objectives and regulatory obligations. This methodical approach minimizes the likelihood of unintended consequences and demonstrates due diligence. An incorrect approach that bypasses a thorough impact assessment, such as immediately proceeding with the automated scaling based solely on performance metrics, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This failure stems from a disregard for potential downstream effects that could lead to non-compliance. For instance, rapid scaling might inadvertently increase the attack surface, leading to security vulnerabilities that violate data protection regulations. Alternatively, it could trigger cost overruns that breach budgetary controls or service-level agreements, impacting contractual obligations. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of responsibility towards stakeholders who rely on the stability and security of the services. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on performance metrics without considering other critical factors like security and compliance, is also professionally unacceptable. This narrow focus ignores the interconnectedness of IT systems and the holistic nature of regulatory compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This framework should include 1. Defining the scope of the proposed change and its intended benefits. 2. Identifying potential risks across various domains: performance, security, compliance, cost, and operational stability. 3. Evaluating the likelihood and impact of each identified risk. 4. Developing mitigation strategies for high-priority risks. 5. Obtaining necessary approvals based on the risk assessment. 6. Implementing the change with robust monitoring and rollback plans. 7. Conducting a post-implementation review to validate outcomes and identify lessons learned. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are data-driven, risk-aware, and aligned with regulatory and ethical standards. Question 15. The evaluation methodology shows that a proposed update to the vRealize automation tenant configuration is being considered. Which of the following approaches to assessing the impact of this update best aligns with the principles of responsible cloud management and automation design, ensuring both operational integrity and adherence to governance frameworks? Option A. Perform a quick review of the proposed changes, prioritizing only those that directly affect the immediate functionality of the vRealize automation console, and deferring any broader considerations to a post-implementation review. Option B. Rely on the vendor's release notes to understand the impact, assuming that any significant operational or compliance implications would be clearly highlighted and that no further internal analysis is necessary. Option C. Focus the impact assessment primarily on the technical steps required for the update, ensuring that the update process itself is smooth and that the vRealize automation platform remains functional from a purely technical standpoint. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that includes evaluating potential effects on existing service blueprints, automation workflows, user access controls, integration points with other VMware components, and any relevant data residency or privacy configurations, while also engaging with key stakeholders from operations, security, and business units to validate findings. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that includes evaluating potential effects on existing service blueprints, automation workflows, user access controls, integration points with other VMware components, and any relevant data residency or privacy configurations, while also engaging with key stakeholders from operations, security, and business units to validate findings. Explanation: the evaluation methodology shows a critical juncture in the lifecycle of a VMware cloud management and automation solution, specifically concerning the impact assessment of a proposed change. This scenario is professionally challenging because it demands a thorough understanding of how technical changes can ripple through an organization, affecting not only IT operations, but also business processes, compliance postures, and financial commitments. The pressure to implement changes quickly can sometimes overshadow the need for meticulous impact assessment, leading to unforeseen disruptions and potential regulatory noncompliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive and systematic evaluation of all potential consequences. This involves engaging relevant stakeholders, utilizing established impact assessment frameworks, and documenting findings rigorously. In the context of VMware cloud management and automation, this translates to understanding how a change in, for instance, a vRealize automation blueprint or a vCenter server upgrade might affect service availability, performance, security configurations, and adherence to internal policies or external regulations. This proactive identification and mitigation of risks are fundamental to maintaining a stable, secure, and compliant cloud environment, aligning with the principles of responsible IT governance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical feasibility of a change, without considering its broader implications, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. For example, overlooking the impact on data residency requirements or privacy controls mandated by regulations like GDPR, if applicable to the jurisdiction, or similar local data protection laws, would be a direct violation. Similarly, failing to assess the impact on disaster recovery capabilities or business continuity plans could lead to operational failures that have severe financial and reputational consequences, and potentially breach service-level agreements, SLAs, which may have regulatory underpinnings. Another failure would be to ignore the potential impact on cost allocation and chargeback mechanisms, which can lead to financial mismanagement and noncompliance with internal financial controls. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the proposed change and its immediate technical scope. Second, identify all potentially affected systems, services, and business processes. Third, engage with subject matter experts and stakeholders from IT, security, compliance, finance, and relevant business units to gather input on potential impacts. Fourth, document the identified impacts, categorizing them by type: technical, operational, financial, security, compliance, and severity. Fifth, develop mitigation strategies for significant risks. Finally, ensure all findings and decisions are documented and approved by appropriate governance bodies before proceeding with the change. This methodical process ensures that all critical aspects are considered, minimizing the likelihood of negative consequences, and upholding professional and regulatory standards. Question 16. Research into the implementation of automated cloud infrastructure provisioning for a financial services organization reveals a critical need to ensure adherence to stringent data residency and privacy regulations. The existing automation workflows, while efficient, lack granular controls for verifying that sensitive customer data is processed and stored only within approved geographical boundaries. The architect is tasked with enhancing these workflows to proactively enforce compliance without significantly impacting deployment velocity. Which of the following approaches best addresses this challenge? Option A. Integrate geolocation validation and data residency policy enforcement directly into the VMware cloud management and automation blueprints and workflows, triggering automated remediation or deployment halts if violations are detected. Option B. Implement network-level geofencing at the data center perimeter, assuming that all internal automated provisioning will inherently respect data residency requirements. Option C. Temporarily disable automated geolocation checks within the automation platform to expedite the deployment of new services, with a plan to re-enable them in a future release. Option D. Rely on manual, periodic audits conducted by the compliance team after deployments to identify any instances of data residency noncompliance. Correct answer is A. Integrate geolocation validation and data residency policy enforcement directly into the VMware cloud management and automation blueprints and workflows, triggering automated remediation or deployment halts if violations are detected. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with robust security and compliance requirements. The pressure to deliver new services quickly can lead to shortcuts that inadvertently expose the organization to risks. The core challenge lies in ensuring that automation, while designed for efficiency, does not bypass critical governance and security controls, especially when dealing with sensitive data or regulated environments. The architect must navigate the complexities of integrating security and compliance into the automated workflows without hindering agility. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes embedding security and compliance checks directly into the CI/CD pipeline and the automation workflows themselves. This aligns with the principles of DevSecOps and shift-left security, where security is considered from the outset rather than being an afterthought. By leveraging VMware cloud management and automation capabilities, such as policy-driven governance, automated compliance checks, and role-based access control (RBAC), integrated into the automation templates, the organization ensures that deployments adhere to predefined security standards and regulatory mandates. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of noncompliance and security breaches, making it the best professional practice. It directly addresses the need for both agility and security by making security an inherent part of the automation process. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying solely on manual, post-deployment audits to ensure compliance. This is a reactive measure that is inefficient and prone to human error. It fails to address the root cause of potential noncompliance, which is the automated deployment process itself. Regulatory frameworks often mandate proactive compliance measures, and a purely reactive approach would likely be deemed insufficient, leading to potential fines or security incidents. Another incorrect approach is to disable or bypass automated security checks within the automation platform to speed up deployments. This directly violates the principle of least privilege and introduces significant security vulnerabilities. It prioritizes speed over security and compliance, which is a critical ethical and professional failure. Such an action would expose the organization to data breaches and regulatory penalties, as it demonstrates a disregard for established security policies and potentially legal requirements. A third incorrect approach is to implement security controls only at the network perimeter, assuming that internal automated deployments are inherently secure. This overlooks the fact that vulnerabilities can exist within the deployed applications or configurations themselves. Modern security best practices, often reinforced by regulatory guidelines, advocate for a defense-in-depth strategy that includes controls at multiple layers, including within the application and automation workflows. Relying solely on perimeter security for automated deployments is a flawed and risky strategy. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, prioritizing the integration of security and compliance into the design and implementation of automation. This involves understanding the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the organization's data and operations. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all relevant compliance mandates and security policies. 2. Mapping these requirements to specific automation workflows and infrastructure components. 3. Designing automation templates and policies that enforce these requirements by default. 4. Implementing continuous monitoring and automated remediation for any deviations. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating automation and compliance controls as regulations and threats evolve. This systematic approach ensures that automation serves as a tool for both efficiency and robust governance. Question 17. Process analysis reveals that a rapidly growing enterprise is struggling to balance the speed of new application deployments with the need to maintain strict adherence to financial industry regulations and internal security policies within their VMware cloud environment. The current process involves manual security reviews and ad hoc compliance checks after resources are provisioned, leading to delays and occasional security gaps. The IT leadership is seeking an advanced design for their VMware cloud management and automation solution that will proactively embed security and compliance into their automated workflows without significantly hindering deployment velocity. Which of the following design approaches best addresses this challenge? By integrating security and compliance directly into the automated provisioning and management lifecycle. Option A. Develop a comprehensive set of security checklists and compliance questionnaires that development teams must manually complete and submit for review by the security and compliance departments before any deployment can proceed. Option B. Implement a policy as code framework within the VMware Cloud Management and Automation Platform to define and enforce security and compliance guardrails directly in infrastructure as code, ISC, templates and blueprints. Automate security scanning and compliance validation checks as integral steps within the CI/CD pipelines and resource provisioning workflows, with automated remediation or blocking of non-compliant deployments. Option C. Establish a dedicated Security Operations Center, SOC, responsible for performing comprehensive manual security audits and penetration testing on all newly deployed cloud resources before they are made available to end users. Option D. Focus on implementing advanced network segmentation and firewall rules at the perimeter of the VMware cloud environment, assuming that internal resource deployments will inherently inherit a secure posture. Correct answer is B. Implement a policy as code framework within the VMware Cloud Management and Automation Platform to define and enforce security and compliance guardrails directly in infrastructure as code, ISC, templates and blueprints. Automate security scanning and compliance validation checks as integral steps within the CI/CD pipelines and resource provisioning workflows, with automated remediation or blocking of non-compliant deployments. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative of maintaining robust security and compliance. The organization is experiencing growth, leading to increased pressure on IT to deliver new services quickly. However, without a well-defined and automated approach to security and compliance, this rapid pace risks introducing vulnerabilities and non-compliance, which can have significant financial and reputational consequences. The challenge lies in integrating security and compliance into the automation workflows without becoming a bottleneck. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves embedding security and compliance checks directly into the CI/CD pipelines and the automation workflows for provisioning and managing cloud resources. This means leveraging infrastructure as code ISC tools that support policy as code, utilizing automated security scanning tools, e.g., for vulnerability assessment, configuration drift detection, and integrating compliance checks against defined standards, e.g., industry-specific regulations, internal policies. VMware Cloud Management and Automation Solutions, such as vRealize Automation, now Area Automation, and vRealize CodeStream, now Area Automation Pipelines, are designed to facilitate this by allowing the definition of blueprints, policies, and approval workflows that incorporate these checks. This proactive, shift-left approach ensures that security and compliance are considered from the outset of the development and deployment lifecycle, rather than being an afterthought. This aligns with best practices for secure cloud adoption and regulatory adherence, as it minimizes the attack surface and reduces the likelihood of non-compliant deployments. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to rely solely on manual security reviews and audits after resources have been deployed. This is inefficient, prone to human error, and creates a significant lag between deployment and validation, leaving the organization exposed to risks for extended periods. It also fails to leverage the automation capabilities of modern cloud management platforms, leading to a less scalable and more costly operational model. From a regulatory perspective, this reactive approach can lead to findings of non-compliance during audits, resulting in fines or remediation efforts that are more expensive and disruptive than proactive measures. Another incorrect approach is to implement security and compliance checks as separate, disconnected processes that are not integrated into the automated workflows. This often results in manual handoffs, delays, and a lack of visibility into the overall compliance posture. For example, if security scans are performed by a separate team after deployment, the development team may not receive timely feedback, hindering their ability to fix issues quickly. This disconnect also makes it difficult to demonstrate continuous compliance to auditors, as the process is not seamlessly documented and auditable within the automation framework. A third incorrect approach is to adopt a security by obscurity mindset, where security configurations are complex and not well documented or automated, making them difficult to audit and manage. This can lead to misconfigurations that are not detected until a security incident occurs. Furthermore, it hinders the ability to adapt to evolving security threats and regulatory requirements, as manual adjustments are time-consuming and error-prone. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a security and compliance by design philosophy. This involves understanding the organization's specific regulatory landscape and security requirements, and then architecting automation workflows that inherently enforce these controls. The decision-making process should prioritize integrating automated checks into the CI/CD pipelines and resource provisioning processes. This requires a deep understanding of the capabilities of the chosen cloud management platform, e.g., VMware Area Automation, and its integration with security and compliance tooling. Regular review and updating of policies and automation scripts are crucial to adapt to changing threats and regulations. Collaboration between development, operations, and security teams is essential to ensure that automation effectively supports business agility while maintaining a strong security and compliance posture. Question 18. Strategic planning requires the design of an automated cloud environment that facilitates rapid application deployment while strictly adhering to U.S. financial industry regulations. Given the critical need for data protection and auditability, which approach to integrating VMware cloud management and automation best ensures both agility and compliance. Option A. Focus on automating the infrastructure provisioning aspect only, leaving application-level security and compliance configurations to be managed manually by development teams after deployment. Option B. Develop custom automation scripts for each deployment scenario without a centralized policy framework, assuming that individual teams will manage their own security and compliance needs. Option C. Implement automated deployment pipelines that include pre-deployment security scans, policy-based compliance checks, and automated remediation for identified violations, all managed through a centralized policy engine. Option D. Prioritize the speed of deployment by automating the provisioning of infrastructure and applications with minimal security or compliance checks, relying on post-deployment manual audits to identify and correct issues. The correct answer is C. Implement automated deployment pipelines that include pre-deployment security scans, policy-based compliance checks, and automated remediation for identified violations, all managed through a centralized policy engine. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud management and automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with robust security and compliance requirements. The professional challenge lies in designing a system that is both agile and adheres to the strict regulatory framework governing the specific industry, which, for this exam, is assumed to be a regulated U.S. financial services environment, requiring adherence to relevant U.S. federal laws and industry-specific guidelines like those from NIST and FINRA, as interpreted through the lens of VMware's capabilities. Careful judgment is required to ensure that automation does not inadvertently create security vulnerabilities or compliance gaps. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it proactively integrates security and compliance into the automation design from the outset. By leveraging VMware cloud management and automation tools to enforce predefined security policies, compliance checks, and automated remediation workflows, the organization can achieve agility without compromising its regulatory obligations. This aligns with the principle of security by design and compliance by design, which are critical in regulated environments. The use of policy-driven automation ensures that every deployment adheres to the established standards, reducing the risk of human error and manual oversight. This proactive stance is essential for meeting the stringent requirements of U.S. financial regulations, which emphasize risk mitigation and demonstrable control. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over security and compliance would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. For instance, implementing automation without incorporating security guardrails or compliance checks would violate the spirit and letter of regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX, which mandate the protection of sensitive customer data and the integrity of financial reporting. Such an approach would expose the organization to substantial risks, including data breaches, financial penalties, reputational damage, and potential legal action. It demonstrates a disregard for the fiduciary responsibilities owed to customers and stakeholders. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical automation without considering the operational and governance aspects, would also be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a situation where automated processes are difficult to audit, manage, or update, creating shadow IT or unmanageable complexity. This lack of governance would hinder the ability to demonstrate compliance to auditors and regulators, a critical requirement in the U.S. financial sector. It also fails to account for the need for continuous monitoring and adaptation to evolving threats and regulatory landscapes. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment that explicitly considers regulatory requirements. This includes understanding the specific mandates of relevant U.S. federal laws and industry guidelines. The design process should then prioritize solutions that embed security and compliance controls directly into the automation workflows. This involves selecting appropriate VMware cloud management and automation capabilities that support policy enforcement, automated compliance checks, and continuous monitoring. Collaboration between security, compliance, and operations teams is paramount to ensure that the automated environment is both efficient and secure. Finally, a robust testing and validation process, including simulated audits, should be implemented before deploying any new automation to production. Question 19. Which approach would be most effective in establishing a secure and compliant operational framework for a multi-cloud environment managed by VMware Cloud Foundation, considering the stringent data residency and privacy regulations of the specified jurisdiction? Option A. Develop a generic automation framework that can be applied uniformly across all cloud providers, without specific consideration for their unique security features or the jurisdiction's specific regulatory nuances. Option B. Implement a comprehensive policy-driven automation strategy using VMware Area Automation and VMware Area Operations to enforce compliance controls, automate remediation of non-compliant configurations, and provide continuous monitoring across all cloud deployments. Option C. Rely on manual configuration management and ad hoc scripting for compliance checks, with periodic manual audits to ensure adherence to regulatory requirements. Option D. Prioritize rapid deployment of new cloud services and applications, deferring detailed security and compliance configurations to a later stage once the environment is fully operational. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive policy-driven automation strategy using VMware Area Automation and VMware Area Operations to enforce compliance controls, automate remediation of non-compliant configurations, and provide continuous monitoring across all cloud deployments. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing a complex, multi-cloud environment with varying security and compliance requirements. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for centralized control and automation with the inherent diversity of cloud platforms and the specific regulatory mandates applicable to each. Ensuring consistent adherence to VMware Cloud Foundation (VCF) best practices, while also meeting the stringent data residency and privacy regulations of the specified jurisdiction, requires a nuanced and technically sound approach. The organization must demonstrate due diligence in its cloud management strategy, proving that its automation and operational processes are robust enough to prevent data breaches, unauthorized access, and noncompliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core requirements of the exam syllabus by leveraging advanced VMware cloud management and automation capabilities to enforce policy and compliance across a heterogeneous cloud landscape. Specifically, it focuses on establishing a unified governance framework that integrates with existing security controls and automation workflows. This ensures that compliance policies are not merely documented, but are actively enforced through automated mechanisms, reducing the risk of human error and providing auditable trails. This proactive, policy-driven automation aligns with the principles of secure and efficient cloud operations, minimizing the attack surface and ensuring continuous compliance with the relevant regulatory framework. An incorrect approach that relies solely on manual configuration and ad hoc scripting would fail to meet professional standards due to its inherent scalability limitations and susceptibility to errors. This would represent a significant regulatory failure, as it would be difficult to demonstrate consistent adherence to compliance mandates, potentially leading to penalties for non-compliance with data protection laws. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes rapid deployment over robust security and compliance controls would also be professionally unacceptable. This would create a direct ethical and regulatory failure by exposing sensitive data to undue risk and violating the principle of security by design. Furthermore, an approach that ignores the specific nuances of the chosen cloud providers and attempts to apply a one-size-fits-all automation strategy would be flawed. This would likely result in misconfigurations and compliance gaps, leading to regulatory scrutiny and potential breaches of data privacy regulations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of the regulatory landscape, followed by a detailed analysis of the technical capabilities of the chosen cloud management platform. Professionals must prioritize solutions that offer policy-driven automation, centralized visibility, and granular control. A phased implementation strategy, starting with critical compliance areas and gradually expanding automation coverage, is also advisable. Continuous monitoring and auditing of the automated processes are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory requirements. Question 20. The review process indicates that a new self-service portal for provisioning virtual desktops is being developed using VMware Cloud Foundation. While the development team is focused on rapid feature delivery and user experience, the security and compliance teams have raised concerns about the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive data and the lack of automated enforcement of data residency policies. The project manager is considering two primary approaches to address these concerns: either to implement a comprehensive suite of manual security audits and compliance checks after the portal is fully developed, or to integrate automated security and compliance validation directly into the CI/CD pipeline, with predefined policies for data residency and access control. Which approach best aligns with the principles of advanced design for VMware cloud management and automation, ensuring both agility and robust governance? Option A. Integrate automated security and compliance validation directly into the CI/CD pipeline, with predefined policies for data residency and access control. Option B. Prioritize feature delivery and user experience above all else, deferring security and compliance reviews to a later operational phase. Option C. Implement a comprehensive suite of manual security audits and compliance checks after the portal is fully developed. Option D. Rely on the individual user's understanding of security best practices to mitigate risks associated with data access. The correct answer is A. Integrate automated security and compliance validation directly into the CI/CD pipeline, with predefined policies for data residency and access control. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid deployment of new cloud services and the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance posture. The pressure to deliver innovative solutions quickly can lead to shortcuts that bypass established governance and risk management processes, potentially exposing the organization to significant security vulnerabilities and regulatory noncompliance. Careful judgment is required to balance agility with control. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-aware methodology for integrating new services. By establishing clear governance frameworks, defining security baselines, and implementing automated compliance checks within the CI/CD pipeline, the organization ensures that security and compliance are not afterthoughts, but are embedded into the service lifecycle from inception. This proactive stance aligns with the principles of secure by design and compliance by design, which are fundamental to responsible cloud management and automation. Adhering to established VMware cloud management and automation best practices, as outlined in the 3V0-3221 syllabus, ensures that the design and implementation are scalable, resilient, and auditable, thereby meeting regulatory expectations for data protection and operational integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without adequate security and compliance validation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to the deployment of services that do not meet data residency requirements, lack necessary access controls, or fail to log critical security events, all of which are direct violations of common regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and cybersecurity. Another incorrect approach, which relies on manual, ad hoc security reviews late in the development cycle, is inefficient and prone to human error, increasing the likelihood of overlooking critical vulnerabilities. This approach fails to establish a repeatable and scalable compliance process, which is a hallmark of professional cloud management. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence in protecting customer data and organizational assets. The professional reasoning framework for such situations should involve a multi-stage risk assessment and governance process. This begins with understanding the business objectives and the regulatory landscape. Next, a comprehensive threat model should be developed for the proposed service. Security and compliance requirements should then be translated into actionable technical controls and automated checks. Throughout the design and implementation phases, continuous monitoring and auditing are essential. Finally, a clear escalation path for identified risks and deviations from policy must be established, ensuring that decisions are made with full awareness of potential consequences and in alignment with organizational risk appetite and regulatory obligations.